Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is James Stergis from Stergis Windows Doors. Here in Attleboro, Mass, we've been making quality vinyl and aluminum windows since 1967. I've been around for 10 of those years, and today I'm really excited to tell you about our double hung window. What we're going to do today is, I'm not trying to sell you on the window. Chances are you already have them in your home. 90% of homes in the United States have windows just like this. It's called a double hung vinyl window, and today we're just going to go through the anatomy of this window. We're going to break down parts, pieces, things that might go wrong, and how to fix them. I'm actually going to flip this around. This is on a nice fancy spindle. And I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to show you how to operate your double hung window. You're going to go right to the top here. You'll have two locks. If you disengage those locks, now each of these sashes can move independently. And again, this is a double hung, so you have your top and your bottom. Now, if you want to take one of these sashes out, your window gets dirty, you want to bring it up about halfway. Now, when that happens, in the top corner, left and right, you're going to have these things called tilt latches. Now, they operate pretty simply. You pull them in, and that releases that sash, so it can now hinge along the frame. Once you're at a 90-degree angle, you don't want to open it like this or that. You want to be completely flat. You can grab one of these ends, and you'll see the pivot pin is sitting in the shoe. And once that pivot pin looks clear, you just give it a lift up, and then the other side, and that sash slides right out. So here we have the double hung sash. Now, there are a lot of components along this sash. We're going to go through each one. At the top here, you have your locks. Now, this is what we disengaged in order to move the sash. On the sides here, we have our tilt latches. Now, these tilt latches are what we disengaged to drop the sash down. Looking at the other end of the sash, you'll notice two stainless steel, it looks like a little metal teat. Really what that is, that's called a pivot pin. That is what carries a majority of the weight of your sash once it's hanging. Now these guys, again, ours are stainless steel, but most of the time I'd say these tend to break more often than any other component. I have a few of them here. Very, very simple to replace. We'll go through all that as well. Removing the top sash of the window, exactly the same, just as easy. You bring it down about halfway to the frame. What was sitting in the upper area here are two more tilt latches. You just disengage those the same exact way and bring that sash down 90 degrees, remember? You give it a gentle lift, and it should come free exactly the same. Now at the bottom of the upper sash, you'll have, instead of two locks, two little keepers. Once you have both your sashes out, you can do any sort of cleaning that you'd like, replace any sort of parts, and then comes the most important part of this process, which is putting everything back together. What's very important to remember when putting these sashes back in is that you have to start with the top sash, or the one furthest back in the track. I'm going to take the top sash, and putting them in is very simple. You want to make sure that the lip that you grab onto to operate the window is on the inside of the house. Obviously, you're going to need that. You'll notice in the trap, you can see exactly where the pivot pin was seated. It's called the shoe, and it looks like a little gray plastic receiver that the pivot pin will drop right into. Now, when you grab your sash, you really want to guide it by the pivot pins. And what I mean by that is you want to seat those in the tracks right above that gray plastic shoe, and gravity should just drop them right in place. Now, I always give it a nice little hearty tap there just to make sure they're totally seated. And then you hinge it up nice and slow to make sure everything goes right, and it clicks right in. Now, you take that top sash, we seat it into place. And I always like to go down and up to make sure that those balances inside are taking the weight of that sash. Now, if the sash sinks low on its own, or if it rockets up, if basically it does any movement that you're not telling it to do, you know that one of those balances is not engaged, and you want to unlock it, take the sash out, and start over. But this one seems to be working fine, so I'm just going to seat it right into place. And then I grab the next sash, the bottom one. Again, I take a look at that lip, make sure that's on the inside. And I seat it exactly the same, right above that shoe. And I just drop it right in and give it a little hearty tap. Slide them up nice and slow. You gotta test it. This one's working perfectly fine. So we put those sashes back in place, throw those locks in, and now you've just completely disassembled a double hung window. Well, that's it, guys. You are officially pros when it comes to the double hung window. If you guys have bigger problems than just operation, we do have a series of videos going through each individual component and how to replace those. So stay tuned for that. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to us either by phone, in the comments, or if you have any questions or if you're looking for any additional information, be sure to visit our website.